we had a little bit of technical difficulty, so we're running a touch behind. But today I'm talking to Georgia Marrion, a prenatal and postpartum nutritionist and women's health specialist. And we're talking to Georgia about navigating nourishment during the holiday season, which I know for most of us is quite challenging, particularly if you're pregnant or postpartum. And also, I think during the holidays, it's hectic. You can kind of get a bit triggered in some certain situations. And also being pregnant, it can be a little bit confusing about, can I eat the Christmas ham, or should I eat this or shouldn't I eat that? So we're going to dive in, and I'm going to ask Georgia a few questions. So
Hi.
Georgia, what are some of hi? So what are some of the food ideas that could be healthy additions to the holiday table? Things, to reach for that are giving nourishment, and are kind of pregnancy safe.
Yeah, okay. So I think overall the focus should be, just in terms of, to put it in a bit of context, I think the focus should be, as it is the rest of the year, in terms of eating in such a way that you're getting the nutrients that the baby needs to be able to grow, and also what your body needs. And you and I have spoken about a fair bit before, but listening to what your body needs in terms of body wisdom. And what I mean by that, and particularly this time of year, as you said, when things are really busy and crazy, and sometimes emotions can get really high. Tuning into what your body is telling you with, say, how often you eat throughout the day, and the size of the meals that you're eating, and the macronutrient composition of the meals at different times of day. So that sort of thing. So, and all of that to be able to deliver those kind of nutrients for your baby and for you. We're talking about having nutritionally dense, largely sort of meals and snacks, essentially. So what we mean by that is having as much nutrient density in a particular meal or snack that you're having, at least most of the time. So what we're talking about here is when you're having food, meals and snacks, basing it around your macronutrients, like your proteins and your carbohydrates and fats we're talking about. So like your proteins, having some sort of protein in there, whether it's a meat or a poultry or a fish or some sort of vegetarian option, or collagen powder or protein powder, that sort of thing. Or things like eggs and cheese and yogurts and nuts and nut butter, or whatever combination of those that work for you. Having some sort of fat in there, like your fatty fish, or if you can tolerate it, eggs, some sort of grass-fed beef, or your avocados, nuts, cold pressed oils, dairy, and some sort of carbohydrate in there. So balancing your sort of snacks around that sort of thing, or few meals around that sort of thing, but then also adding in your nutrient density to it. So like, we talk about with our kids a vegetable rainbow, like, trying to have that sort of thing, leafy greens, fermented foods like your sauerkrauts, that sort of stuff. So, snacks. So meals, I guess, are sort of that sort of combination, but snacks can be anything from, nuts and fruits or cheese, like having that as a snack, cheese and crackers, vegetable sticks with some sort of dip, like tzatziki or hummus or something like that, nuts and seeds, making your own trail mix. Also, smoothies are a really good idea as well, because you can add all sorts of stuff into smoothies, and especially this time of year when it's really hot, and if you're pregnant, you don't want to be necessarily having really heavy sort of foods, because they don't work for a lot of people at this time of year, but particularly when you're carrying a big load in front of you. So, yeah, I guess that's probably how I would approach it. Yeah.
And I guess, on that note, just to let you guys know, we are going to cover a lot of material here. So we're going to have a handout that I'll pop a link in below, and I was just trying to do that now. That's why I was looking down at my phone. So I can't, multitask. So I'm going to do that after the broadcast, and you guys can grab a handout, which Georgia will give you a summary of all this stuff. But I guess another important thing, Georgia, is to make sure, there's so much to navigate, and I think for women in particular, regardless of whether you're pregnant, postpartum, a mum, trying to conceive, we tend to have this good food and bad food mentality that's programmed into us as females. Yeah. So I guess, like, I know you talk about your body wisdom and tuning into that. So on top of this whole, what do I eat? Can I eat? There's this mental game going on in the background. So how do you recommend we navigate that?
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I feel like, somewhat I'm sort of repeating myself, but in a way I think the body wisdom really is the basis of it, because, because otherwise you get, as you said, too much in your own head about what a magazine or what a social media blog or whatever it might be is telling you is a good thing to eat or a bad thing to eat. But there is no one size fits all for everyone in terms of anything, but in terms of eating, in terms of what makes you feel good and what doesn't. And but it's always, but it's really important to enjoy the season is what I would say, but also tuning into what makes your body feel good, but also having fun as well. So like, what for you individually, what tend to tip you over the edge in terms of to particular types of foods or amounts of foods that really make your brain go into massive brain fog mode, or your mood swings just go over the top, the low energy, like tuning to that. So for a lot of people, the dose is often in the poison, right? Poison's in the dose in terms of how much you have is usually, unless you have an allergy to something, usually, the more you have, the more it's going to have a certain imbalancing effect on your body. Things like sugar and processed foods is no surprise to anyone. If you have that, if anyone has too much of that, your body's not going to be that happy about it. For some people, it might be. So in terms of foods to consume in moderation, that sort of thing. For some people, if they can't tolerate at certain amounts, like dairy or lactose or gluten or excess carbohydrates, might be for you. So that's kind of what I would say is, again, tuning into what works for you most of the time, and also working with that without necessarily putting your judgy pants on in your head that, oh my God, I've had a piece of chocolate. You know what I mean? So, and as long as you're feeling good within your physical body, I think, well, then you're doing something right with what you're eating. So if you're not, well, then
and I guess it's a time of year too where you kind of, I know for me, a lot of foods on offer that I don't normally eat. Like I'm probably a little bit, I just stick to the same. Pretty much, I think a lot of women do, and their mothers and feeding families as well. You stick to pretty much the same routine, and there seems to be more foods on offer. Or, for example, you may have just had a baby this year and you haven't really had any alcohol, and you tend to have, start to have a glass of champagne or something. And you're right, really tuning into how you feel after that, or feel even going into it, or if it's going to make you feel lethargic or bloated, or it's not quite right for you. It's kind of just learning to really listen to what your body's telling you.
Yeah, I just think really, because then, because as you said, it is the time of year when routines are all over the shop in terms of what you do with your day, in terms of what you're eating and how much you're eating, that sort of thing. And I guess it's somewhat similar to the rest of the year in terms of it's what you do most of the time. It's not being about perfect, but what you're doing most of the time. Well, I guess probably focusing on how you want to feel physically, and then tuning it, like, working with most of the time with what helps you achieve that, with while still having fun with the season and not being obsessive about it. So and
what do you recommend sort of like leading into sort of, we start, for example, today my kids break up from school, and then the snowball of the holiday events start. What are some tips you recommend in preparing for that, or what little tips you recommend, before you go out or the week before, or preparation, that you can kind of put yourself in a good frame of mind, and also not get to the event and just be ravenous.
Yeah, well, I guess, obviously it'll be slightly different if someone's pregnant or if they're postpartum breastfeeding and that sort of thing, in terms of what they can eat and what they can't eat, sort of thing. So, if we're talking about during pregnancy, I think, for everyone, I would say, let's take our perfectionist pants off and let's have fun as well. But I would sort of say overall the guiding thing is go with a 80-20 rule or a 90-10 rule. Is that 80 or 90% of the time you're eating a way that makes your body feel good, and 20-10% is the other stuff that makes you, it's good for the soul sort of thing. So so that's the sort of thing. But if you are going out and if you are relaxing and having fun, well, then just enjoy that while you're there and do that, and then sort of balance yourself out the next day. For example, if you are drinking alcohol, if you're postpartum and you're drinking, and you've got a social event coming up, drinking plenty of water in the lead up beforehand, in a couple of days beforehand, so your body's hydrated before you start. Eating a nutrient dense diet as best that you can, having extra liver support, things like antioxidants from your fruit and vegetables, and bitters like your lemon juice and apple cider vinegar, and protein. They support your liver pathways, which process all these fun food sort of things. And the days after, same sort of thing, having lots of water, having nutrient-dense foods, having your proteins and antioxidants to help process things. And also this is probably where you'd be jumping in, but moving your body on in some way in most days. You might be, with the heat and with the time of the year and being out of routine, you might be cutting back on your normal exercise routine, but maybe moving body in some way most days, if that's what makes your body feel good. So
yeah, it is. It's about keeping that balanced approach, I think, because so many people I find, put the exercise out the window and the eating takes priority. And that's hard because you become busy and there's a lot of stuff going on, or you're traveling, and everyone's very worried about what they're going to eat in between Christmas and New Year. And then I find, I always say it's not about what happens between Christmas and New Year. That's, as you say, the 20%. It's about what happens between the New Year and the next Christmas. So think about what you've done that kind of time and just come back to that. And Christmas is just one day. When you look at it in the scheme of things, it's one day. I know there's a lot of celebrations for that one day, but it's not about, thinking it's all or nothing. So I'm just going to not exercise. I'll leave that till January, because we always see everyone come back with their New Year's resolutions. It's kind of like, maybe you're going to eat a little bit more of this and do a little bit less exercise. But at the end, if you've been consistent with your eating, or you're picking, 20% or 80%, whatever, you're making well-nourished choices. It's kind of that mental game. Let's just not overthink it, and just, just pick stuff that you say that's going to make you feel good.
That's it. It's not about all or nothing. It's not about everything's out for the whole of December and it's this massive gorge fest, in terms of more, because, we all know how that's going to make us feel come January. And, it kind of tends to take some of the enjoyment out of the season when physically we're just feeling blah sort of thing. So, like if you've got a big social dinner that night, like having plenty of water that day, maybe making a lighter day, like having a smoothie and salads sort of that day sort of thing, obviously making sure you're eating up on protein, that sort of stuff. Do you know what I mean? So and
we will do that. We'll link smoothies. I know are a great option, particularly if you are heading out and if you are pregnant and there's not going to be pregnancy safe food choices, which we'll dive into in a minute. So we're going to link through, and we'll link through to some smoothie recipes as well, because I know I always find if I sort of have a smoothie mid-afternoon, and this is probably more for everyone in Australia where it's really hot. Maybe if you're overseas and it's freezing, it's probably, it might be a soup instead of a smoothie. So it's sort of filling yourself up before you go out with something that you're nourished with. And then if you're lacking any food choices because you're pregnant, or B, you're not going to be ravenous, when you get to an event, and probably make not the most optimal choices. So on that being pregnant, I know I get a lot of questions from women. They're like, okay, well, the Christmas ham is cooked, and very often in Australia, or the prawns are cooked, but very often in Australia, the ham is served cold, or the prawns are served cold, and there's a lot of confusion, like, oh, but it's cooked, can I eat it? But it's actually cold. So can you just explain that, what sort of, avoiding listeria and salmonella and a bit of food safety for pregnant women?
Yeah, and the same rule applies as for the rest of the year, but you probably need to be a little bit more vigilant, as you said, because there tends to be more food around that does have a higher risk of listeria and salmonella. And also there can be a tendency that, just with the season, is that we're eating out more, or we're eating more food that other people have prepared. So we're not necessarily as across, like if it's been washed or if it hasn't, and all that sort of thing. So, we all know that listeria, but for the sake of covering it, is commonly found in things like your soft cheeses and your smoked seafoods, and prepackaged fruits and vegetables that haven't been washed, your uncooked deli meats, your unpasteurized dairy, and soft serve ice cream. So avoiding those is probably the first strategy, like as we know, but just doesn't change just because it's Christmas. And at this time of year, we need to be particularly mindful of leftovers. So really it's more about, like, if a ham's been cooked and it's been cooked fresh, that sort of thing, having that within the day. But the best tip here is to freeze any leftovers the day that they're cooked, and then eating them hot, like above 75 degrees Celsius would be the general guide. If you're in doubt, though, if you have any anxiety about it, don't eat it and have something else instead, because it's not worth being pregnant. It's not worth the anxiety that you'll feel, whether there's something wrong with that particular food or not. If you're feeling anxious about it, I just don't think it's worth the stress that you're causing yourself for the sake of eating it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
How long it's been in the fridge for example, or if that, you know what I mean. So I think if in doubt, and be vigilant about food safety if you're eating out or if you're with someone else that has prepared the food. And don't be afraid to ask if you have any particular questions or concerns about food safety, like how long ago something's been prepared for, if the fruits and vegetables have been washed, that sort of thing. And if in doubt, where it's appropriate, not to cause family issues, but take your own meals or snacks or snides if you feel it's going to make your enjoyment of the occasion, better than sitting there feeling anxious about particular food and that sort of thing, depending on family. So that's
absolutely. And well, we'll link through to some recipes as well, and in the handout that we'll put up, and also some snacks, because Georgia's in my online program, the Ultimate Pregnant Core, Georgia is our nutritionist, and she provides some fantastic weekly meal plans, some smoothie bonuses, snack bonuses. So we'll give you a few little bonus of those, a few of those recipes. And that's a great suggestion. Can I bring a salad to this event, or just pack yourself some nuts or trail mix, like what Georgia said, and just just have the confidence to I know it's hard around family, and particularly, different generations have different views about what you can and can't eat. So just get empowered on that knowledge that's going to make you feel comfortable and not anxious. And it is very challenging if you're also pregnant and you haven't told the family yet as well. And everyone's offering you alcohol and different kinds of food, and you feel like all eyes are on you. So it is really challenging navigating that, and it can, prove a little bit of anxiety. And also on that note, I know particularly for myself, I had 2 babies born in October. So by December, I had a couple of newborns around the Christmas time that I was breastfeeding, and I was exhausted, lacking sleep and stuff. And I think, a lot of these social events do bring exhaustion. You're trying to settle babies at them, you're trying to breastfeed and stuff. So it's okay to say, can I find a quiet room to go and feed my baby, and just even close your eyes for 5 minutes, because, it can be really, really draining. And I think that as well brings a lot of anxiety with the food, and it just can snowball as well.
I mean, obviously, and everyone's situation is different with what their own family situation is, and how much, I guess, people would feel comfortable with, questioning certain foods and that sort of stuff. And I totally get that. But as you said, say, for example, if you're postpartum period is full on anyway at the best of times, but adding in Christmas in there as much as possible, taking the stress away from the food side of it by, if it's going to make you feel better to take your own salad sort of thing, well, then it's, the world's not going to stop spinning. Do you know what I mean? Whereas it's probably going to help you feel to be able to cope with that or everything else you've got going on a bit better if you're not. And we all know, anyone that's been postpartum, especially in the first few months, is that sometimes things can seem bigger than what they actually are when we're not postpartum. Do you know what I mean? So something like
you're running on lack of sleep, so everything's amplified.
Like turning,
and you also need that nourishment. Like, don't just put everyone's about the baby, but at the same time, postpartum, you need to nourish yourself. You've got a lot of healing to do, and all those vegetables you mentioned, Georgia, and the high protein, the tissue rebuilding, and all of that. It's really important to give yourself priority as well.
Yes, absolutely. We've spoken about postpartum before, but and that goes back to what we talked about at the beginning. Like, for the most part, for your snacks and your meals, basing them around your good quality carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, and that's a really good start. And nutritional density is a really good start with providing your body with the building blocks to be able to recover, no matter what sort of birth you've had and what sort of postpartum situation you've got. There's recovery at every end of that spectrum, whether you've had a really full-on birth and everything went wrong, or whether everything went so-called perfectly. Do you know what I mean? Your body still needs to heal. So it's about providing the building blocks for that. So that's kind of how I would focus on things. So.
Well, I don't know if we've got any questions coming through. If anyone's got any questions, feel free to post them below, and we can definitely get back to you. And I just also wanted to say, physically as well, as I said, it's exhausting not only looking after a newborn, it's exhausting being pregnant and being at events. And sometimes you can be standing for long periods of time, and, long, particularly in Australia, travel with a newborn or being pregnant can be challenging as well. So just think, the physical, the mental, and the food all goes hand in hand. So what is going to nourish you through your food is going to give you energy, etc., particularly if you're feeling physically drained as well. So it's kind of important to keep that balance just out of a bit of a self-care point of view is the main thing.
Yeah, and kind of touching on what you said before, it's about changing the mindset from, say, if you're postpartum and you're in that period, for example, changing the mindset from, okay, it's postpartum now, and I have to post my Instagram post of my post body, picture 2 weeks after I've had a baby, and then the mindset of the whole good and bad food, and changing that mindset from that to as far as your body's healing here and providing all the key nutrients to help your body do that, and help your body start to feel good, do you know what I mean? And it will be small gains. So that rather than the whole judging ourselves for, how things are supposed to be in the postpartum period and how you're supposed to look and that sort of stuff, tuning to how your body's feeling. So,
yeah. And still, you're not only nourishing you, your body's healing. If you're breastfeeding, you're still nourishing your baby. So there's a lot of pressure on, and and then you've got this whole other dynamics of festive, stuff happening. So it's really, that's why we wanted to just have a brief chat and also put together a little handout for you guys, which George has done, and I will pop the link below. And then you can print it out, put it on the fridge. It's going to have some links within the handout to some great recipes, and also any tips. And also you can get in contact with Georgia if you need any more information as well.
Sure. Yeah. Nice to talk to you.